Well, hey, welcome to Faith. My name is Pastor Matt. I'm hanging out here with Pastor Cyril and Pastor Brandon, and we're actually in the new podcast studio, and I'm really excited with how we're kicking this off because we're kicking off the introduction of this podcast studio with a 30-day series in prayer. And so we're actually right now recording a series of conversations on prayer. And so where this all kind of sprung from was we were talking to the worship team, and we were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a night of worship and prayer? And out of that started springing, well, if we're going to do a night of worship and prayer, let's spend the whole month of January just focused on prayer. And then we're like, well, if we're going to spend the whole month of January focused on prayer, let's really get intentional about teaching people prayer tools. So out of that came this 30 Days of Prayer resource journal. And the first 10 days of this journal are designed to essentially teach you a bunch of different tools around prayer so that you can learn different ways to pray. Because I think when we think prayer, I don't know how you guys were taught prayer. We're kind of taught like one style of prayer. And then what you begin to realize is sometimes that style feels really effective and fruitful. And other times you're like, well, is God even listening? And then all of a sudden, I think it was like 5-6 years ago for me, I was really opened up to a bunch of different styles of prayer. And that started opening up my prayer life more. And so that's one of the reasons we're doing this. I invited these guys because these guys are both just prayer warriors. And so as we're getting ready to kick this off, before we even talk any of these styles, what's been your experience with prayer? And what do you feel like was like a pivotal turning point for you when it came to your own prayer life?
Yeah, great question, Pastor Matt. And prayer is something that's been very interesting in my life. Like mostly brought up in the church, in the Lutheran church, and prayer was something that I'll talk to God, right? Or I'll rather ask God something, and then I would pray scripture or ask God something. It would be almost like a transactional thing, right? But then close to my college, when I was about mid-college, I got really ill. I got really sick and missed about 3 months of college. And when I was ill, sitting on my couch, I remember my mom says this to me. She said, Cyril, you could talk to God. And that was like a wow, something just happened. The revelation just happened that I could actually be in a conversation with him. I think that's what now changed my prayer life. My prayer life wasn't anymore me going to God and saying, I'm talking to God for like a request, but my prayer life was being in a relationship and having a conversation with someone I love.
I love that story because I think it really highlights something that's really important. It's not that reality wasn't present before, but sometimes when your picture of what prayer is changes, it can change everything. And I love that picture you have of like, you can have this conversation with God. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. For me, I think prayer was modeled to me in a really wonderful way through two faithful Christian parents. My dad, who was a Lutheran pastor and who taught us. Yeah, we learned scripture and prayers like Luther's morning prayer, and we prayed together. Songs. Most meal times it was songs that we'd sing, which I still love to do with my kids. Or requests, like you were saying, Cyril. And I remember from a young age asking God to help me find toys that I had lost. And when I did, it grew my faith. It grew my faith. And so like even to this day, I think God, He teaches us where we're at in life. Prayer is a gift. The ability to pray is such a gift. And so it's something I'm still learning and growing, and I'm excited to dive into some of these styles that I'm not as comfortable or maybe used to, but we can always grow. And so that's been kind of my prayer journey, is just given some great things to model, learning how to put them into practice, realizing, okay, I'm really not getting this very well and need to be reminded of it. And yeah, process of our spiritual growth is really what I think.
So before we dive into these styles, I'm just going to assume what some people are thinking. Some people are thinking, oh, okay, these guys, they have it figured out when it comes to prayer. Their prayer life is probably just the most amazing thing ever, So what's the biggest challenge for you when it comes to prayer or your prayer life?
Yeah, definitely don't have it figured out. Definitely do not have it figured out. But the biggest challenge to me is setting a time where I can be quiet by myself, right? Finding that time, because we all know the busyness of life, everything's happening. Yeah. When can you really be quiet? Because I want to have a conversation with someone I love and that loves me even more than I love. And the biggest challenge is finding the time, honestly.
Yeah. I second that wholeheartedly in a season of young kids and having a challenge to find quiet in that chaos. But I think another big challenge is, besides consistency, is when you don't feel like praying, how do you pray? And what styles are there when you don't feel like praying? And when you don't have that emotional desire to connect with the one who loves you, but maybe it's, we have a relationship and we have some models of prayer that give us tools. So I'm excited to dig into that too today.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. I think like I was always a kid and still am an adult that is kind of in constant motion. And so like just slowing down enough to be present with God and to be consistent in that and to realize that prayer is not doing nothing. Because I think I also feel like I have to be doing something a lot. Even in the ways I rest, I feel like something needs to be going. And so to know that sometimes it's in that stillness that I'm going to be able to connect. And then too, I think like anybody else, you get in prayer ruts. It's like, you kind of like feel like you're putting in the motions sometimes instead of just like really approaching God, or you're waiting till you feel that tension in life to really dig in deeply and be like, okay, God, because I need you now, I'm going to just pray more intensely. And so, and I think also just feeling like never good enough in prayer. You know what I'm saying? Like you always feel like, I need to be praying better. And I wonder if that's a lifelong thing, just because of like the reality of what prayer is and who we get to talk to, and the fact that we should never have that kind of access, and yet God gives it to us, and then feeling like we're not taking as much advantage of it. I don't know, but those are probably some of my favorite prayer challenges.
Good ones.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to have these conversations with you guys, and I think here's my other challenge to you. You're going to hear us talk about our experience with some of these things. What you're going to find out is some of these tools really resonate with us deeply. Part of that's how we're wired, our different personalities, our own experiences, and how we connect. Just like people and individuals connect differently with each other, we connect differently with God. But it's all in that blanket of prayer. But here's going to be my challenge for you as you're walking through this and you're hearing these conversations. Don't just simply listen to these conversations as like, okay, let me put more head knowledge in there about prayer. I think the thing with prayer is, and any of these tools, like it's not just good if we put it in our head. We have to actually try it. We have to like engage our hands and our feet when it comes to prayer. And so these conversations are designed to help you dig into these tools. The journal's designed to help you do that. But the only way these things become fruitful is if you just try it. Even if you try it and you realize, oh, that style they were talking about doesn't really resonate with me, that's okay. And then my big challenge for you for the end of this is don't see this as like, here's what we're doing for the next 30 days, and then I'm going to put this on the shelf and not worry about it anymore. My challenge to you, and we wrote this at the end of the book here, is let this be a tool that you could then use to disciple somebody else in prayer. Because the only reason we're here sharing these things with you is because somebody discipled us in these things, and somebody took the time to teach us about these prayers, whether it was putting together a resource or whether it was just taking individual time to sit down and say, hey, have you ever thought about prayer like this? And so I want to challenge you. You don't need to be a pastor to do that. You could grab something like this, sit down with somebody and say, hey, let's try this together. Or, hey, I know you're going through something tough. Have you thought about praying like this? That always helped me in that. And so that's my big challenge to you all. Like, don't see it as just a podcast, but see it as an opportunity to really be able to grow in prayer and then help somebody else grow in prayer.